Okay, this is the last Hebrews class, and we've actually gone through the whole Hebrews text. So what we're doing now is a review, a little bit of review, so we can kind of just get it settled in our heart. We've gone in depth, kind of verse by verse type of thing. It's easy to not be able to see the forest for the trees sometimes, so we're going to back away and just kind of look at it in general. But we started the class by introducing the book as a book of encouragement. And I trust that you all saw that as we went through how many times there's encouragements. And what is the main goal of the encouragement?
Stay faithful.
Stay faithful. Don't go back. And I talk, we're not going to talk at length about any of these things, but I asked you all to look for things like assertions, just statements of fact. There's a ton of those. I'm not going to go through any of them, but we are also supposed to look for reasons for whatever he's talking about. And what is the little signal word? For, the Greek word gar, and it means here's why. And I don't know if you've been noticing other places, when you're reading the Bible, the Hebrew writer isn't the only one that uses this word. Here's why, this word for. I've just been noticing myself, just practically every time you pick up and read, there's a for in there somewhere. Here's why. And God just gives us a lot of reasons for what he tries to teach us. We learned that word's used 91 times in the book of Hebrews. So just every single class we've had, I think there's been at least one here's why in there, and probably quite a few more. There's 13 chapters, divide that into 91. I don't know what you get, but like at least eight times per chapter on average. So there's a lot of reasoning in the book of Hebrews. And the idea is don't go backwards, and here's why. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's just each one of those fours is just part of a proof. Now, what Keith is handing out right now is, no, you don't have it. What he's handing out now is a 3 pages. It's printed on both sides, which is unusual for what I've been handing out to you. It's printed on both sides. The first one is a chart of the whole book of Hebrews, kind of compartmentalized by subject, I guess you would say, or by it's actually a chart of what comes next on those sheets, which is an outline of the book of Hebrews.
I only have 3 pages.
You only need 3. It's not on the back.
So we need 2 for.
How many people didn't get anything on the back of your pages?
I do not have.
You get something on the back of your page.
Yeah.
So everybody's got access to.
Well, how does that make me feel? How do you feel? No, a little left out.
You have stuff on the back of every page. You people don't have.
When there's stuff on the back, it's.
It says 1 of 6, and then this is 3 of 6.
You don't
have 2 and 5. And then 6. You could probably look up just like, you don't. Yeah. I probably want my Hebrew notes. Good thing I didn't write them wrong.
Okay, so.
I can use paper.
Well, they're printing them up now, so you'll get them when they come out. Just raise your hand if you have one of those that doesn't have the second side of each page. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to briefly tell you what that is. There's an outline of the book, which we're going to go through this outline today. Wanted to get you the paper so you didn't have to try to write down this outline as we went. But anyway, there were comparisons that we're supposed to look for, all those things that more and better. There were contrasts where this is true, but that is not true, or but this is also true, or something like that. There's contrasts, there were conditions and conclusions, wherefores and therefores, and exhortations. Just about with almost with every conclusion, there was an exhortation. Since this is true, then let us do this. And so we'll see those as we go through. We talked about the fact that this book is set against a backdrop of corruption and decay of the nation of Israel. Just everything was messed up. The high priesthood, the high priests, some of them at least, weren't even of the tribe of Levi, let alone descendants of Aaron. And so that was corrupt, but then all their traditions and everything else had just corrupted the true nature of what God wanted out of the children of Israel. And when Christ came and upset the apple cart, they killed him for it. And those people that believed in him and continued to follow him, they began to persecute those. The Jewish people persecuted the Christians, and by the time the book of Hebrews written, the Romans were persecuting Christians as well. This was under the time of Nero, and terrible persecutions happened. The Apostle Paul was beheaded during this time, and just a lot of people were. You can read stories. You read the history about Nero lining the roads in his garden with crosses with burning Christians on them to light the pathway, and just a lot of terrible stuff. And so this was what was going on. They couldn't necessarily come together like we're doing and just totally not have a care in the world about somebody busting through the door and arresting all of us and taking us off and torturing or killing us or that sort of thing. But this is what was going on, and there were good reasons for somebody to think, maybe kind of like that peacefulness I had back when I was just a regular Jew and just a regular person. I don't need this business of being in danger all the time. I'm just going to go back. Well, no, you don't want to do that. And here's why, and here's why, and here's why, and here's why, and 91 times here's why. Anyway, this was a time of discouragement, tendency to want to go back. All right, so now we're to the handout sheet. The first page of the handout is this chart, and it has 4 columns. Each one is a section of the book of Hebrews, and then as you go down the column, that section is further divided into some individual things that it talks about. And it's exactly the same thing as we're going to find. I printed that because it gives you the whole outline of the book just in one sheet, but I also gave you the whole outline here, and that's kind of what we're going through. Anybody remember how the book of Hebrews starts?
God who in sundry times in various ways spoke to the prophets.
Okay, it starts with God, just like the whole Bible starts with God, doesn't it? In the beginning, God. That's where everything starts, is with God. And Hebrew writer follows that same pattern. God, back in the old times, he spoke to the people, to the children of Israel through the prophets. But now he speaks to us through his Son. And so we have the beginning of our first comparison, really. It's before even he compares to the angels, he actually is comparing Jesus. He's a son compared to just a prophet, spokesman. And he also is a prophet because he speaks for God too. That's what a prophet is. But So anyway, the first section of Hebrews is the superiority of Christ's person. All the things in chapter 1 that he talks about. And he talks about how Jesus is superior to the angels. God speaks through his son. He didn't say anything about the angels, anything about being children or anything like that. He just talks about Jesus being superior to even the angels and to us, earth dwellers. Angels are superior to all of us because they dwell in heaven. They have they can be messengers for God, but Jesus as an earth dweller was superior to even the angels. And there's a warning in there in chapter 2: don't drift from this message. And then the next thing he goes to is comparing Jesus with Moses. Jesus, he says in chapter 3, is an apostle and high priest. And he gives the warning: don't harden your hearts like the children of Israel did when they came out of Egyptian bondage. They hardened their hearts and wanted to go back. And the warning is don't do that, because there's bad things will happen. We just don't have time to read through and talk about each thing that he talks about, but essentially what we want to see is that Christ is superior. Jesus is superior to the angels. He's superior to Moses. And then second section there is superiority of Christ's priesthood. He's already introduced as being a high priest. Well, his priesthood is superior to the Sue needs one. Just raise your hand if you need one of those copies that Keith has. Sue needs it. And does everybody else have it now? Randy does. Okay. All right. Thanks, Keith. Okay. So what was the job of the priests? Okay. The priests, the whole priesthood, they administered everything religiously, did everything concerning the tabernacle, and then later on the temple. Then out of all the priests, there was one that was high priest. And what was his job?
He'd be an annual sacrifice.
Okay, his main purpose: annually he would go in on the Day of Atonement, make sacrifice for himself. Then he would go in and make sacrifice for all the people annually. We talked about it, I think it's been last week's lesson, the scapegoat. You know, the two sacrifices were made: a bull and a goat. The bull for his own sacrifice or his own sins, and the goat for the sins of the people. And then they took the live goat. He put his hands on him, confessed all the sins of the people, and then they sent him off out into the wilderness, just symbolizing their sins being taken away. That's what the high priest did. And the high priest could be sympathetic with the people, sympathetic with their plight of having to have their sins forgiven. And why could he be sympathetic? He was one of them. He had sins himself that had to be sacrificed for every time. But now in chapter 4, he talks about Jesus being a sympathetic high priest because he's been here. He's been tempted and put on trial and all that kind of stuff. He's gone through everything that we have to go through, so he knows what it's like. And that's how he can be sympathetic. And then there's kind of a side thing in the second point there, a call to spiritual maturity. Chapter 5, he says, you guys, you should be teachers by now, but you need somebody to teach you uh, the rudiments of the first principles of the oracles of God. And so just encouragement to persevere and grow. And then in the third point here, chapter 6, we're introduced to Melchizedek. And we're told that Jesus Christ has a priesthood like Melchizedek. So dial up your memory and tell me who Melchizedek was.
The high priest that didn't have any beginning or any end.
Okay, that's a good start. Tell me more. Pardon?
King of Salem.
Okay. Yeah, he was the king of Salem, so he was a king and a priest, and he was a priest of God, by the way. And was he of the tribe of Judah? The tribe of Levi? So he was a priest, but he was not of the tribe of Levi. And how do we know that? Because he lived before Levi did. He lived in the time of Abraham, and Abraham had Isaac, Isaac had Jacob, Jacob had Levi. So we're talking several generations down the line before we even get to Levi. And he was a priest. So
Melchizedek.
don't even know that. Yeah, don't even know that. But we're not told anything about his beginning. We're not told anything about his end. All we're told is that Abraham paid tithes to him. He was a king and a priest, and Abraham paid tithes to him, which means who's the greater, Melchizedek or Abraham? Melchizedek is always, the tithes are paid to the greater by the lesser one. And so because Jesus is a priest like Melchizedek, that makes him also greater than Abraham, which most of the Jews would not like to hear. Christians didn't mind hearing that. That was a good thing. But Abraham was the top of the heap as far as the Jewish people were concerned. You can't get any higher than that. But yet he shows, from their own Bible, he shows them, look, Abraham paid tithes to Melchizedek. So obviously Melchizedek was greater than Abraham. Jesus is like Melchizedek. And how was Jesus like Melchizedek?
Priest.
He was king and priest, and he was also a prophet as well. And so he was all three of those things that get anointed. There were three things: prophet, priest, and king that were anointed. And Jesus is called Christ, which means anointed. He's called the anointed because he was anointed in all of these things. That makes him superior. He was superior to Melchizedek, but he's also superior to Abraham and to Moses and all down the line. So we see this business of Melchizedek pops up a couple times in the book of Hebrews, and just keeps going back to Jesus' superiority as a priest, as high priest. And in the 6th chapter, he talks about the promise and the oath that God made, and that by two immutable things, God's will was established, or the promise was established, and that, and in chapter 7, he is comparing Melchizedek and Abraham, and the whole 7th chapter is about the superior priesthood. Then the 3rd section is the superiority of Christ's covenant. What is a covenant?
Promise.
It's an agreement. When you make a covenant with somebody, what are you doing?
Okay.
It's like a contract. You're saying you do this, we'll do this. If you buy a house and it has covenants, you sign that paper, what are you doing?
What it says.
You're agreeing to do whatever it says in the covenants. I won't park a motorhome in front of my house more than 2 days at a time or whatever. I won't park a junk car. I won't pile junk. I won't paint the house anything but brown. If you're in Phoenix, it's tan or dark tan. It's about the choice that you have. If you have covenants in one of those neighborhoods. And so anyway, but you sign your name, you make the agreement. This is what I'll do. You let me buy this house, I will follow the covenants. And so that's what a covenant is. Now, Christ's covenant, well, first of all, before Christ, there was a covenant, right? And what was that called? The law of Moses. God gave them these laws. Here's these laws, and he spends a whole couple chapters talking about the blessings and curses. You do this, you follow this, I will do this. I'll bless you like you never could imagine. If you don't, then here's the consequences. And the people said, we will keep this covenant. They agreed and they signed their name on the paper, so to speak, and they made a covenant to do that. That was an earthly covenant, and how good did they do at keeping it? Not so hot. They couldn't keep it. And so was the covenant at fault? What was the problem? It was the people. In the Hebrews, it says, but finding fault with them, the people, he had to bring in a new covenant. And this new covenant is Jesus's covenant. Could the old covenant forgive sins? No. Could the new covenant? Yeah. So is the new covenant superior? Yes, it is. So that's what he spends quite a bit of time in the book of Hebrews talking about the two covenants and how Jesus' covenant is superior. For one thing, as it says there under the first point, Christ's priesthood is eternal. How long did an earthly priesthood last? Till the guy died, just as long as he was alive. So the priesthood changed over and over again with new people. Every time somebody died, they had to appoint new priests. And so, but Christ is an eternal one. It never ends. So it's a better priesthood, and it's based on better promises. We talked a little just now about what the promise of the old covenant is. Someday the Messiah is going to come. What's the promise of the new covenant? You get to go to heaven because the Messiah has come. And so it was better promises. And then the second point there is earthly versus heavenly sanctuary. The earthly sanctuary was what? No. The earthly sanctuary was what? It was the temple. Yeah. It was the temple, but now where's the sanctuary? In heaven. What's up in heaven? The high priest. The high priest is now with God, face to face with God, and all the things that the old covenant represented. The altar of incense, the incense going up, what did that represent? Our prayers. A sweet savor going up to God when we pray. It's a spiritual thing. The whole thing, the old covenant is physical. The new covenant is spiritual. That's another thing that makes it better. And so That's what he talks about in chapter 9, earthly versus heavenly sanctuary. And then he talks about the rest of chapter 9, part of chapter 10, about the sacrifice, the perfect sacrifice. The offerings that the high priest made, how long did they last?
Till next year?
Till next year. The offering that Jesus made, how long does it last?
Forever.
It lasts forever. And so his sacrifice was perfect. It was once and for all. And it was totally cleansing the conscience. You're free, you know, your debt has been paid, it's signed off. You can walk out here a free man, so to speak. And then in chapter 9 or chapter 10, quite a long time, there's exhortations to persevere, keep going, draw near with confidence, hold fast the confession. And there's a warning there against willful sin. What happens if you sin willfully? Yeah, there's no more sacrifice. There's nothing that can be done. God's already done everything he can do. And if you see that, if you taste of that, know that blessing, and then you leave, there's nothing that can be done. So you don't want to go back, let yourself get into a place where you've seared your conscience, you go against God, go against those blessings that you know were there, that you had once. You go against that, there's no coming back. So you better make sure you don't start sliding. And that's the whole point there. And the encouragement to endure. They had a lot to endure. There are a lot of trials and troubles. They might even have to endure the death on the cross or on a cross, or by being cut in half, or many different ways that people could be killed because of being a Christian. You might have to suffer that, but what do you have if you do endure in this life? You have a hope in a home in heaven. Hebrews talks about we have an anchor, sure and steadfast, anchored in heaven, and we need to hang on to that rope that's tied to that anchor, because that's what will get us to heaven no matter what else happens. The ship can sink, but if you got a hold of that rope, that anchor is anchored in heaven. So that's the end of section 3. Section 4, he talks about the superiority of the life of faith. What happens in chapter 11? Abraham, for one. Abraham, chapter 11 is the whole list of people of faith. Abraham, all of these ones that by faith did this, by faith they did this, and it was all, they did something, and it was by faith that they did it. It wasn't just sitting back saying, yeah, I believe. Yeah, it wasn't that. I believe enough to do whatever you tell me. And so there's well, first of all, in chapter 11, there's a definition. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We talked about that. Then he says, by faith, Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, others who live by faith, Rahab the harlot, and others were mentioned. Those were all examples of faith. And then after that, that's followed by exhortations, because we have such a great cloud of witnesses, all of these people that are on this list, witnessing how beneficial it is to be faithful to God. Now, since we're surrounded by so many witnesses, then what? Let us do this. There's a therefore and a let us here. Let us run with endurance. And then he talks about while we're running with endurance, what happens? When we mess up, God will discipline us. God can discipline us from time to time, and just like a loving father disciplines his child, it's not because he's angry with him. He just wants to straighten him up. And that's what God does with us too. We go through troubles and trials in this life. We need to be paying attention and think, okay, what do I need to do to get better? Not everything that happens is God's discipline. The Old Testament, it says that time and chance happen to us all. Sometimes things just happen by chance. Other things happen because of sin. Somebody sins and it affects me. That's not God doing it. That's I'm feeling the effects of somebody's sin, either somebody else's or my own. There's consequences to sins, but God does chasten us along the way, and we just need to, sometimes you can easily identify it. Drunk driver hits somebody, kills them. Yeah, there's a serious consequence there. Is that God punishing the person? No. Time and chance. He just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time when that drunk driver ran the red light. And but then there's other times, why is this happening? Well, let me think about why might it be happening? What is there something I need to change in my life? And instead of complaining, oh, nothing ever happens right. This always goes wrong. Instead of being like I used to be, start thinking about, yeah, maybe there's something you need to change in your life, and God loves it.
Carl used to say, why me? All the time. He doesn't say that anymore.
Yeah, I don't say that anymore. I used to say cotton picker a lot too. Cotton picker, why is this happening? So anyway, okay, so chapter 12 talks about pursuing peace and holiness and the kingdom that cannot be shaken. We just learned this stuff just recently, so no need to really talk about it too much. But then the fourth section, chapter 13, is the practical section of the book of Hebrews. Talk about brotherly love, hospitality, honor in marriage, contentment in Christ, respect for leaders. And then he has the closing benediction and greetings. And then where I found this outline, it gives us summary themes. Hebrew emphasizes the superiority of Christ in every dimension, better than the angels, Moses, Aaron, the old covenant system. It is a sustained argument urging believers to remain faithful and not turn back. That in a nutshell, right there, that paragraph in a nutshell is the book of Hebrews. So anybody have any questions or any observations or anything that you would like to say about this class before we?
I think it was very encouraging to state that the straight and narrow and know what's happening at the end.
There you go. That's a good thing. It was very encouraging.
I think it was good to use the what did you call them? Yeah, the four of
The reasons.
the reasons, because if you wrote it above it and then reread the sentence again, it really brought it to my mind anyway, what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And especially the four. Here's why.
The first time I did use this idea, I don't even know, can't remember how it came to me to start looking for reasons and contrasts and comparisons and things. But I went through the book, just reading as fast as I could go, just looking for comparisons. Fast as I could go reading, just looking for the reasons for the 444. And just when you do that, just here's why. Oh man, it just starts piling up, and it just makes the book come alive. And hopefully it's done that for you. Something that you can do sometime, doesn't have to be right away, but it'd be good just to go through Hebrews and just look for all the fours, just and highlight. That's what I did. You should see my old New Testament that I can't use anymore because it's falling apart, but in the book of Hebrews, it's just got all these colors that I've been talking about, highlighting all these things, and you just go through and it just hits you like a brick.
The comparisons of the contrast and, all of that. I mean, I wrote it above each word that we had highlighted, and then I went back and read it again, and it just opened it up. Which I thought was amazing, because you can read for here, for today, we're going to the store. Okay, but if you read, here's why we're going to the store, it just changes the whole sentence.
Yeah, it really changed it for me too, and hopefully it changed it for all of you as well, and hopefully it encouraged everyone to grow and to start paying attention to when things aren't going quite like we would like them to do, to start thinking, well, there may be a reason why. Why is that? What do I need to change? There's no point in looking at this book if it doesn't, I mean, it encourages you not to fall back, but it also encourages you to grow as well. When by reason of time you ought to be teachers, that's one of those exhortations. You need to grow and get to the point where you need meat instead of just milk all the time. Okay, well, any other comments? Anything, Gene?
And